So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Parkinson Society Southwestern Ontario's webinar, Parkinson's Disease and Gut Health, the Microbiome Connection. This is being presented by Sarah Lodge. She is a registered holistic nutritionalist and a natural nutrition clinical practitioner. Currently, she is a member of the Canadian Association of Natural Nutrition Professionals and working as a registered holistic nutritionalist for Sarah Lodge Nutrition. She focuses on digestive transformations, various healing modalities, and the brain-gut connection. Before we begin this webinar, I would like to begin with a territorial acknowledgement. I will begin this presentation by acknowledging that this webinar is taking place within the region of Waterloo, and this region is situated on the traditional land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. We would like to acknowledge that we are on the Haldimand Tract, traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee people. Additionally, Parkinson Society of Southwestern Ontario would like to acknowledge and thank the Ontario Trillium Foundation for generously supporting our educational initiatives. And lastly, before we begin, just a quick medical disclaimer. The information provided in today's webinar is for the purpose of health education and is not intended or should be intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Consult and review information with your physician or qualified healthcare practitioner, professional, regarding your medical condition and treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regime. This information is not intended to replace medical advice offered by physicians. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Sarah.
Okay, thank you, Cassie. So this beautiful person on the screen is me, and I'm just going to briefly explain basically what my profession is and how a holistic nutritionist practices and their view on healthcare. So here's a little video that goes over it in greater detail.
What is a natural or holistic nutritional consultant? These professionals take the approach of looking at the whole person, not just a part or two. They take into account emotional, physical, and situational aspects. Their efforts are based on the fundamental notion that all the various parts of a person are connected and therefore interrelated. Because every client is considered to be unique and individual, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Diet, stress, supplementation, exercise, and other lifestyle factors are considered based on the unique biochemistry of each individual. The key is to uncover the root cause of an imbalance and help direct the body to heal itself. Tools of the trade center on whole natural foods and supplements without harmful additives, colors, or preservatives, with an eye on environmentally sound alternatives. An experienced practitioner will be able to provide clients with ample options and guidance such that the path toward optimal health is not too overwhelming, but can fit comfortably within the individual's parameters. Education of the client is of primary importance. Efforts concentrate on preventing poor health or reestablishing good health and catching imbalances in the early stages, but diagnosis and treatment are not part of the accepted scope of practice. In short, this is a practical approach focusing on food choices, lifestyle changes, and supplement suggestions, expressed in terms that any client, regardless of knowledge level, can easily understand. Natural and holistic nutritional consultants catch health as opposed to chase disease. For more information about natural, holistic nutritional counselors, contact the CAN.
Okay, so I hope that gave you a brief overview of how we practice and that every person is very unique and individual. So that is definitely very important to know. So we'll start the presentation today. Again, welcome. I'm super happy to be here today to engage with you and hopefully teach you a little more about how the body functions and why the gut microbiome is so important, especially in its role with Parkinson's disease. Just a brief overview of our agenda. So we're going to go over Parkinson's, dopamine, and the gut microbiome, the gut-brain axis, vagus nerve, a lot of teaching educational points, how to build a healthy gut microbiome, question and answer panel, and then some closing remarks. So we'll get started here. So if you're here today, you likely know someone with Parkinson's disease or have an understanding and an overview of the disease. So I'm just going to touch on a few points today as it relates to the full webinar. Okay, so as we know, Parkinson's is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder in which certain dopamine producing cells in the region of the brain called the substantia nigra gradually die. Dopamine is a feel-good neurotransmitter, I'm sure you've heard of this, responsible for the feelings of pleasure and motivation, but it also plays a key role in cardiovascular health, cognition, digestion, which I find very exciting, motor control, sleep, and stress management. So by the time symptoms of Parkinson's occurs, about 60% to 70% of these cells are gone. So let's briefly touch on dopamine. Now, as explained, dopamine is a neurotransmitter, but also a hormone. And we know that it plays a role in many important body functions, including movement, memory, and pleasurable reward and motivation. The movement component is a bit more of a focus when it's related to Parkinson's disease. So now we'll look a little bit more in depth, basically a little more sciencey, if you will. So dopamine is made in the brain through a two-step process. First, it changes into the amino acid tyrosine, changes the amino acid tyrosine into a substance called dopa, and then into dopamine. Again, this affects so many parts of your behavior, your physical functions, such as learning, your heart rate, kidney function, sleep, mood, your attention span. It controls the feelings of nausea and vomiting, as well as pain processing and movement. So those are all like huge functions in your body, and dopamine is responsible for that. So dopamine also works closely with serotonin, and serotonin helps to regulate respiration, digestion, behavior, as well as all neurological functions. So in summary, higher low levels of dopamine and serotonin are associated with several mental health and neurological disorders. So a very, very, very important substance in the body. Now, how does this affect your gut microbiome, and what is the connection anyways? So first I'll touch on what gut microbiome is for a second if you've never heard of it. I like to make it simple, not too sciencey. So a very simple explanation is your gut microbiome is made up of trillions of microorganisms and their genetic material that lives in your intestinal tract. So these microorganisms are mainly bacteria, and they are involved in functions that are very critical to your overall health and well-being. So as we discussed, dopamine and serotonin are two types of neurotransmitters, but what you might have not known is they are produced primarily in your gut. So this seems to be an eye-opener for a lot of people. So here are some statistics. In fact, 90 to 95% of serotonin and 50% of dopamine in our body is stored in our guts. And we know that dopamine helps to regulate learning, attention, memory, and mood. Therefore, gut microbes not only support our digestion and metabolism, but they can also impact our mental and emotional health. Who knew, right? This is where the gut-brain axis is presented. Now, if you've ever heard from your friends, like just go with your gut, or when you're making a decision or you like a big decision or you feel very nervous, you get butterflies in your stomach. So this response happens when you're getting signals from your, what we call the second brain. So the gut-brain axis is a term for the communication network that connects your gut and your brain. These two organs are connected both physically and chemically in a number of different ways, but what we're going to talk about is the main source and that is the vagus nerve. So on this beautiful slide here, we're just going to recap that the gut-brain axis is the term for communication network that connects your brain and your gut via the vagus nerve. So this is not a medical diagram, so you can't see all of your extra organs in here. However, there is no interruption between the brain and the gut via the vagus nerve. It is literally a direct information highway. So the vagus nerve is the biggest nerve connecting your gut and your brain, and it sends signals in both directions. So when your stomach's upset, or you're feeling sick, you're usually very emotional, or you're going through some sort of trauma, and then vice versa. If you're depressed, then your gut is starting to respond with various symptoms. So again, they talk both ways. Now your gut and your brain are connected physically through millions of nerves, but most importantly is that vagus nerve. The gut and its microbes or microbiome also control inflammation and make very different compounds that can affect brain health. So now we're going to talk about the gut and the process of digestion. Now, the digestive system is very complicated, but we're going to touch on the most important parts and how exactly the digestive system works. So the digestive system is made up of 5 main parts. That's your mouth, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestines. Most people believe that digestion begins when the food enters our mouth. But in fact, it begins as soon as we see the food. Our bodies automatically start producing saliva, and that saliva contains the enzymes we need to start the digestive process. So hopefully whoever does the cooking has very good food presentation. Otherwise, you know, the digestion process might not start right away. So, all right, let's go into a little more in-depth diagram. So after we visually inspected our food, digestion begins then when our food enters the mouth, we chew, swallow, and it's completed in the small intestine. Digestion involves the mixing of food, its movement through the digestive tract, and the breakdown of food into smaller molecules. The digestive process varies, obviously for different types of foods. So high fiber foods, fruits and vegetables take a little bit longer to process, whereas your highly processed foods will just digest and zoom through the body. So on average, it can take up to 36 to 72 hours for food to fully move through the colon. Now, this process slows down as Parkinson's disease progresses, leading to constipation as the #1 GI complaint. So we're just going to recap here. The gut-brain axis refers to the physical and chemical connections between your brain and your gut via the vagus nerve. We know millions of nerves and neurons run between your gut and your brain. So by altering the bacteria in your gut, it may be possible to improve your brain health. So let's get into the good stuff. How do we build a healthy gut microbiome? Now, each person has an entirely unique network of microbiota, and that's originally determined by an individual's DNA. A person is first exposed to microorganisms as an infant during the birth process, or through the birth canal during delivery, as well as through a mother's breast milk. So the species of bacteria is determined by the mother. So if your mother had poor gut health or she didn't take care of her health, you're born basically with compromised microbiota. So later in life, environmental exposures and diet can change your microbiome to either be beneficial or place you at greater risk for disease. So let's discuss the main ways of repairing your gut microbiome. And everybody can do this. So we're just going to go into each category just a little bit deeper. So number one, food is medicine. So nutrient dense foods. This means foods that have a high impact of vitamins and minerals, fiber, your healthy fats, etc. So these foods have high impact, they keep you full longer, and they take a little bit longer for your body to process, but they have way more added benefits than processed foods. And underneath here, you'll see the MIND diet. We're going to go into that a little bit more in depth. This is a diet specifically with nutrient-dense foods that promote brain health. So eating a balanced diet obviously can improve your overall health and then boost your ability to cope with Parkinson's disease. So eating plenty of whole foods like fruits and vegetables, proteins, beans, legumes, and whole grains are going to be very beneficial for brain function and healthy gut microbiome. Second is fiber. So we always know that fiber is super important, obviously, for many benefits, but to keep you regular is sort of the common usage for fiber. So as far as fiber, women need about 25 grams of fiber per day, and men should be getting around 38 grams of fiber per day. Sounds like a big number, but if you're eating a well-rounded diet, it's not a huge number at all. And then lastly, natural supplements. So in addition to eating a whole food diet or antioxidant rich diet, there is some evidence that supplementation can help either reduce the risk of Parkinson's or support the current symptoms. So let's go a little bit more in depth on the MIND diet. So what does this stand for? So MIND diet stands for Mediterranean Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. It's a combination of the Mediterranean diet, if you've ever heard of that, and a DASH diet. They're very similar diets, but they've been combined to remove common allergies to food, or sensitivities. So with emphasis on foods that have specifically been linked to support brain health. So basically in the diet, we have our green leafy vegetables. This is a basic layout, obviously. You want to aim for 6 or more servings per week. This includes your leafy greens like kale, spinach, any cooked greens, and your salads. Of course, you want to have other vegetables as well, at least once a day. Berries. As we know, berries are good for you. They're very high in antioxidants. Berries like blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries are one of the highest. So you want to eat those at least twice a week. Nuts, you want to try to get around 5 servings of nuts or more per week. Excuse me. And this can be a variety of nuts. Obviously, if you have allergies, you're going to avoid those ones. You want to use olive oil or avocado oil as your main oils. These are oils that are high in omega-3 fatty acids, which supports brain function. Whole grains, you want to aim for at least 3 servings daily. Seems like a lot, but if you have toast for breakfast and you have maybe a muffin for lunch and a couple of crackers later, you're probably getting close to those 3 servings. You want to choose whole grains, obviously the healthier ones, such as oatmeal, like a plain oatmeal, quinoa, brown rice, whole wheat pastas, and whole wheat bread versus the white source of all of those. And then fish is a big one because of the omega-3 fatty acid factor. You want to eat that at least once a week if you can. The more fattier fish are salmon, sardines, trout, tuna, mackerel. Those are more the fatty fish. So if you can get those in at least once a week. Then we have beans, lovely beans. And you want to include those at least in 4 meals per week. Very easy to do. And this also includes all beans and lentils. Then poultry, you want to eat at least twice a week some chicken or some turkey, very high in protein, obviously. But again, protein benefits neurological function. So in summary, the MIND diet encourages limiting your consumption of things like butter, margarine, cheese, red meat, fried food, pastries, and sweets, because they contain the largest amount of saturated fat and trans fat. In layman's terms, that's your bad fat. So now this diet is very high in protein, so you might be having a red flag go off, but because of its neurological benefits, protein is very important. Now, protein and the medication interaction has presented to be a bit of a stressor with Parkinson's disease, so we're going to talk just a little bit more about that. Now, if you're taking levodopa medication, your doctor may tell you to avoid protein when taking the medication. So both animal and plant proteins can interfere with the absorption of levodopa medications, but you should still eat plenty of protein. You just need to be strategic with the timing. Now, it says it's best to take on an empty stomach. Truthfully, our stomachs are never empty, so this is sort of a funny statement, I find. However, here's the trick, sort of, to strategic planning. So you want to either eat a high protein meal at least 30 minutes before you take your medication or 1 hour after you eat to take the medication. So then there's no direct interference. The body has been able to digest and process the protein, and then it's moving its way out of your body, and then you take your medication, and then your body can effectively process that without the interference of protein. So it's just more about being strategic. Now, the other issue that, like, according to my research, is that a lot of people get nauseous from the medication. So if you eat something like a small amount of starchy food with your medication, it should reduce that nausea if you don't have time for a meal. And crackers are a really good starchy food to sort of subside the nausea. Now, it's just important to be mindful then whatever you eat with your medicine just doesn't have protein. A fun fact, so fava beans contain the amino acid levodopa. So in research, they are unsure the exact amount of levodopa that it contains, or that the fava beans contain, but they do have it. So if you're going to choose beans, go with fava beans. Now, this is not a plug, but I do want to mention that working with a nutritionist or dietitian can take all of the guesswork out of what you need to eat and when. So if you find that you're really struggling with what foods contain protein, and you're actually not getting a lot of healthy foods into your diet because of this, then working with someone that can actually strategically plan out when you take your medication and your nutrient-dense meals is really going to take a lot of stress out of that for you. So now let's talk a little bit more about fiber. Now, you may not think about fiber very much in your life, or probably not as much as I do, until you find yourself dealing with a sort of an irregular situation. Now, dietary fiber is somewhat of a magic ingredient, and the mannerism is that it keeps you regular. So reducing constipation is not just its only job, but it is one of the biggest jobs it does. It also helps to lower cholesterol, reduces the risk of heart disease, plus it keeps your blood sugar levels from spiking, and it also helps to make you full longer. So again, one of those more nutrient-dense meals. So there's a few key notes to understand about fiber, as it's not all just about eating vegetables and whole wheat breads. So let's dive into that. So as you see here, there's two types of fiber. So we have a soluble and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber dissolves in water and other bodily fluids like our stomach acids and bile, everything that breaks things down in our body. And it forms a gel-like material to help pass stool through the body. And then insoluble fiber is the opposite. So it draws in all the hydration, it draws in all the liquid and makes your stool bulkier. So as you can see, if you were to have too much of one, you're going to have symptoms like diarrhea. If you're having too much of the other, you're going to have symptoms like constipation. So it's super important to have a balance of both. Now, with taking in extra fiber comes fluids. You need to drink a lot of fluids or bring in a lot of fluids in order to help flush everything through the body so that the body or the digestive system can break it down effectively, and hydration helps with that. So again, there is a little bit of a variance in how much fiber one person needs based on age. So if you're under 50, I had mentioned earlier, you're 25 grams for females, 38 grams for males. Now, if you're above 50, that drops. Your needs drop, your caloric intake drops. So around 30 grams a day for males and around 21 grams of fiber per day for females. Okay, the next thing, in addition to eating a whole food diet, physical activity, getting in some extra some extra fiber. There is some evidence again about supplementation. So we're just going to go over each supplement in its entirety and give you an idea of how they can help. So here we have Coenzyme Q10. If you've never heard of it, this nutrient is naturally produced in our body and generates cellular energy and acts as an antioxidant. So Coenzyme Q10, some preliminary studies suggest that supplemental CoQ10 may prevent the onset of Parkinson's by protecting neurons from toxicity and reducing the loss of dopamine in the brain. So that's huge. Next is curcumin. This compound is found in the spice turmeric and is best known for anti-inflammatory its anti-inflammatory properties. So studies on this report that because curcumin can cross the blood-brain barrier, it also boasts antioxidant and neuroprotective benefits. Vitamin C. There's a link between vitamin C and positive dopamine levels. So it may not just help with those with Parkinson's, it may also prevent the disorder. This is according to new research. So after reviewing data from 2 large studies, researchers at Harvard found that this nutrient alone reduced the risk of Parkinson's disease. And then vitamin D, we know that as the sunshine hormone, or it is a hormone, but the sunshine vitamin. So some evidence notes that higher levels of vitamin D are linked to decreased risk of developing Parkinson's disease, while low levels of this critical nutrient can actually increase risk. So food for thought. Now here's the big one. I'm sure if you've heard of gut microbiome, you've heard of probiotics, and even just living in the world, I'm sure you've heard the buzz about probiotics somewhere along the line. In my point of view, they are our body's superheroes. Now, probiotics play a significant role in the gut microbiome composition, which can inhibit the colonization of pathogenic bacteria in the intestine. It helps the host build, the host being you as a person, build a healthy intestinal mucosa, which is a protective layer, basically protecting the healthy bacteria, and enhances your immune system. So probiotics is a very big subject, so we're just going to touch on some of the main factors. So as you can see, it has many health benefits: digestive health, promoting mood and memory, strengthening your immunity, decreases antibiotic resistance, prevents skin irritations, and fights toxins and pathogens from entering the intestinal tract. So manipulating gut bacteria in the microbiome through the use of probiotics and prebiotics has been found to influence both physical and emotional well-being. The thing is, probiotics are live bacteria that produce health benefits when it's eaten. However, not all probiotic supplements are the same. So they have, now this is a bit of this could be a webinar on its own, but so there's probiotics that affect the brain, and they're often referred to as psychobiotics. Without getting too fancy, psychobiotics is a live organism, bifidobacterium. I'm sure you've seen it maybe on some side of yogurts. So when ingested in adequate amounts, it produces a health benefit in patients suffering from psychiatric illnesses or depression, anxiety, etc. So alternatively, probiotics that affect the gut will come from various other strains. So as you can see, the one that works maybe for Susie down the road might not work for you because you have different needs. And again, our bodies are very unique, and each strain bacterial strain has a different purpose. But basically, by altering the types of bacteria in your gut, it may be possible to improve your brain health. It's so important to speak to a healthcare practitioner to find out what probiotic supplement would be right for you versus, just going to the drugstore and picking up any supplement and having some horrible side effects. So again, it's best to speak out and reach out to a healthcare practitioner for that. So today, I have created a recipe book that is based on to support and improve brain health. I developed it using the Mind Diet as the framework, which again is a combination of the Mediterranean and DASH diet eating patterns. And we know that the Mind Diet, as I discussed earlier, the Mind Diet has been attributed to improve cognitive thinking, slowing the progression of neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Now, keeping in mind, when I work with clients, we make exact meal plans based on how people like to cook. If people have food allergies, we're going to remove those. And just keeping in mind that we're not all the same, obviously. And so everything goes more unique and planned. But this recipe book has a million, I guess that's over exaggerating, has some great recipes in there that are going to get you started on the right path. And if you're interested in this, Cassie will be sending out an email, and she'll give you the link so you can set yourself up for that. So now I'm going to turn this back to the beautiful Cassie. And
all right, thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
So we have time for some question and answer period. So if there's anything during this presentation that you found, you wanted more information on, this is your opportunity. You can use the chat box. You can even directly, if you're comfortable, you can just turn off your mute and you can ask Sarah directly.
Sarah, I have a question. In your diagram, when you talked about the gut, it seemed to imply that it's just the large bowel in your diagram.
Sorry, which one was it?
When you were talking about, the gut microbiome and the vagus nerve,
Right.
connecting. In your diagram, it showed just it didn't show the small bowel, it showed just the large bowel.
Oh, yes. No, that's just not the best diagram, but it is all your digestive intestinal tract. So it does affect this. It's housed in the small and large intestine. The majority of it in the small.
Okay. The next question I have is that if somebody had GI surgery and the vagus nerve was cut, can they use the pathway if it's been damaged? Like if they have dumping syndrome, for instance, dumping syndrome, which which affects the vagus nerve.
Right. So absolutely everything you can build a healthy gut microbiome. And there is, they call it vagal nerve stimulation. So there is activities that you can do to stimulate the vagus nerve to start to communicate better with your gut.
Okay.
So definitely, unless it's been medically suggested that it's beyond repair, you can definitely build a healthy gut microbiome and do healthy stimulating activities for the vagus nerve.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Cassie, can you see me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned probiotics and prebiotics. What is the difference between the two?
So the way that I like to say it, because it makes more sense than going all sciencey, is that basically the prebiotics, so you can get that through various foods. They do have it in supplementation as well, but the prebiotics basically make a house and a home for the probiotics to grow. So the probiotics are your good bacteria, and the prebiotics basically pave a way. They clear out all the toxins, and they help to build a healthy home for the probiotics to thrive. Now, probiotic foods that you can get are like yogurt and fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha. If those are kind of buzz foods, but and then prebiotics are things like onions and garlic, artichokes, basically like superfoods. So those help to basically pave the way so that the probiotics can have a healthy environment.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question? Do you feel like?
It does. I just am wondering, should you work on your prebiotics before you start taking probiotics, or work on them together, or?
Simultaneously, because they know what to do. So as a holistic nutritionist, we are food first. So you can get a lot of that through your food. But if you know you're extremely compromised in your gut microbiome, food and supplementation are going to help build the healthy gut microbiome a lot faster.
So if you say we're on antibiotics for an infection, you should probably boost your probiotics to replace those with a supplement, as opposed to, say, yogurt that might not have the same amount of probiotic in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like in addition, the food, like post antibiotics, there is a regime that I wish everybody knew about, and that medical doctors were pushing post antibiotic use, because as you know, it strips the bad bacteria, but also the good. So there is, again, like I said, there's different strains that would be more beneficial to take post antibiotics that'll really boost you up a lot faster, because you don't want to, if you've been building it well through food and supplementation, you don't want that to be ruined by a heavy round of antibiotics. So for sure, reaching out to a professional to make sure you're getting the right strain post antibiotics, because there is a way to build it rebuild a lot faster.
So that would be more of a naturopathic route than your typical GP?
Yes. Yeah. So naturopathic or nutritionist like myself. Yes.
Here in Charlottetown, when people have surgery, bowel surgery, the surgeons are ordering kefir.
Yep. That's a pro and prebiotic, basically.
So it's a very good one to use.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that. I know, and it's kind of funny when we think about the way we run here, because say in India, their hospitals, one side is Ayurvedic and the other side is traditional medicine. So when a patient comes in, they have the choice to either go the route of medical intervention, medications, et cetera, or they have the option to go to the other side of the hospital where it's all naturopaths, nutritionists, and go the route of
Wow.
Ayurvedic medicine, which is natural medicine. So it's interesting because it seems uncommon here for doctors to recommend natural supplementation to heal, where it's so natural in other countries.
I think you have to go over there.
It's too bad.
If I want to speak. I have a question.
Yep.
When the food leaves the small intestine, it travels around, and then by the end, it has changed the food into something else. Like what was food of one kind gets transformed by the small intestine into something different. How does energy whatever get from the food to the energy, let's say? There are two different systems, and they must somehow, some of the food has to be transformed to.
So that happens. Sorry, that happens in the digestion process. So basically, once it moves through like our stomach acids, they break that down as well. But our saliva contains those main enzymes. So we need digestive enzymes to process foods. And if you're compromised, your body, it'll tell you if you have compromised enzymes, because you might not be, for instance, if you've had your gallbladder removed, different body parts removed, your body doesn't produce the proper amount of enzymes to break down the nutrients. So it is a whole process as you move through the digestive system. But basically, if everything's sort of functioning properly, your body knows how to distribute the nutrients where it needs to go. And as long as you're producing proper amounts of enzymes, and the way you can tell that is if you're suffering from extreme diarrhea or you're suffering from bloating and you're having symptoms. But if you're having solid healthy bowel movements, then your body is processing the vitamins and nutrients that it needs to, and taking in everything it needs for your body to function properly. Does that help to answer the question?
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Oh, I lost.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have any questions as well that they would like to take the opportunity? Diane, all right. I get you to unmute here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, so we're wondering what your thoughts are on using the Ayurvedic Mucuna pruriens rather than the pharmaceutical L-Dopa?
Oh, well, that is a good question because I have not heard of that. So, you know what, I would definitely, by the sounds of it, if it's more the Ayurvedic path, then I would always suggest it. Now, as far as like me to recommend something, I would want to look into the studies on either side.
Yeah.
Have you been taking it, or do you know someone that's been taking it?
Well, my husband has, we were just, yeah, we've been taking it. He has been. And, you know, it's hard to say which is better. He was on the pharmaceutical for several weeks, or, 2 or 3 months. And then he went on to this Mucuna. But it's hard to say, because we don't know what the progression of this disease is and what to expect.
Right.
It doesn't seem to be a whole lot different than the pharmaceutical.
Well,
like the way it feels.
The way it feels. And what about any symptoms or anything like that? Like, do you feel that, or sort of side effects rather?
Like, are you listening? Side effects, like what sort of side effects?
Like experiencing constipation, which I think is the #1 complaint.
Okay.
Has there been a
Yeah,
difference?
he was experiencing constipation, but then somebody suggested to us to use ground up flax seeds.
Yep, that's a good.
And I've been doing that for about 3 weeks now, and he's got no problem whatever. And then putting a little bit of olive oil in his cereal or his oatmeal.
Yeah,
That seems
which
to
is
be what's working for us now.
yeah, and like as you said, those are two main things on the Mind diet. So that's
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, 'cause we've had trouble with this Macuna pruriens, like finding out about it, and everyone seems afraid to suggest a dosage, and kind of we're flying by the seat of our pants, not sure what to expect. But he's not a whole lot different, like he's still shuffling and, tremors and things like that.
Right. And well, the best way to know is always like sort of long-term side effects of a pharmaceutical versus a natural. So basically the long-term research is what's going to be the telltale of that. But what you could do, if you wanted, just for a bit more privacy, I'm happy to talk with you and sort of give you someone that you can speak to that might be able to give you more insight into that, so that you know about dosage and sort of what's the difference. So I'm happy to connect with you on the side and then send you where you need to go.
Could you spell that? I'm not familiar with it. Could you spell it, please?
Okay, it's MUCUNA, Macuna, and then pruriens, PRURIENS.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it sounds like homeopathic almost. So be interesting. I would definitely.
Right now we're using. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Sarah right now?
Oh, I see it in my chat here, which I'll reach out. It's just about where to find wild fish in the GTA. Yeah, because it is farmed elsewhere. I do know the answer to that because I have Greek neighbors that like to eat very healthy, and they look great for their age. And they go down to Toronto to get all fresh organic foods in their fish. So I would have actually a direct source for that. So again, if you want to connect with me, you can connect with Cassie, and she'll be able to send my information to you. And I don't have a name, it just says MW.
I will be sending out that that link that Sarah was so kindly to produce for the recipe book to everybody who registered for this webinar.
Thank you.
So I do have, before we finish up, a few questions that had come in prior, but I don't want to just give one more option for anybody who wants to ask Sarah directly anything. All right, okay. So Sarah.
Yes.
We have a couple questions.
All right, let's see what I can do.
So there's been a lot of talk, you see it in politics, you see it on, in the grocery store. People are often talking about the price of food, how expensive it is. And it creates a lot more challenges, right, when you're trying to navigate a new diet. So is eating healthy more expensive?
So that's a good one. It's a yes and no answer. So basically, if you're transforming from a very unhealthy diet, you've eaten a lot of boxed foods or microwave dinners or craft dinner, very convenient food. So if that's been a diet of yours, to be honest, those foods are way more expensive. However, when you're switching over from that diet into a healthier lifestyle, your first couple of grocery shops are going to definitely be a little more expensive because you're rebuilding a healthy pantry. So you're putting in like beans, new spices that have nutritional benefits, new condiments, and basically, and maybe buying in bulk some items, right? So the first couple of grocery shops for sure are going to be more expensive. However, in the long run, each grocery shop after that, you're only going to be shopping the perimeter of the grocery store. So that's for fresh produce and fresh meats. And then also you're going to be preparing your meals, then you can freeze your meals. So you're getting a lot more out of the foods that you buy and the foods that you prepare. And then also you can plan for like sort of budget friendly meals, look for sales and stock up on those items and build them in your pantry. So honestly, in the long run, it's actually way cheaper to eat healthy. Yes, it does take a little bit more of your time. It's not as convenient, but when you do food prep and you're putting it in your freezer, the excess in your freezer, it is actually more convenient because you can grab out a healthy dinner in seconds and reheat it. So in the long run, it's always cheaper to eat healthy.
All right. Well, thank you. Yes, I guess that's the big idea, right? Is it's maybe makes grocery shopping a little bit faster when you're just sticking to the perimeters as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Another question, because you had mentioned with the Mind diet, it's very heavy on foods that are really fiber dense and beans, which is something people often talk about with gas and bloating and something a lot of people experience. So what foods do cause gas and bloating?
So there's a lot. Definitely beans is one of them. And certain foods, obviously, for each individual are going to bother me versus somebody else, right? So each person is definitely individual with foods that would cause gas and bloating, but the main ones are like your high allergen foods. So like gluten, dairy. Dairy is like probably the number one food that causes a lot of gas and bloating. So gluten, dairy, eggs, and some different nightshade vegetables as well, because your body may not be producing the enzymes to effectively break them down. So therefore you get that side effect of gas and bloating. Another thing that causes that is that if you're not chewing properly, so if you just like take a bite, chew maybe once or twice and swallow, well, that's really hard for your body to break down. So on average, they say you should chew about 35 to 45 times before swallowing. Now, not a lot of people do that. So therefore, you might get gas and bloating. And then also certain foods like high sugar foods, if you're drinking pop, that kind of stuff. And then anybody suffering from a digestive disorder is going to suffer from bloating and gas based on any type of food that they eat. But those common ones like the lactose or the dairy, gluten, eggs, those are pretty common.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You know, we often think about food, right, as the forefront for gas and bloating, and not necessarily how we're consuming food. You know, chewing food and how that, like you mentioned before, as part of that digestive process, how important it is to allow the saliva to break things down and giving ourselves time to eat food and not just, you know, swallowing really quickly, right? So that is really interesting. Thank you for acknowledging that one. And one last question before we finish up. So I don't know if this is a bit of a myth. I think a lot of people have heard it. I know I've heard it throughout my life, is 8 glasses of water a day. Is there truth to that? Do you need to actually drink 8 glasses of water a day?
Yeah, so that's a fun one. We know that drinking water is vital to our overall body functions. So yes and no. The fact of sitting down with 8 glasses of water and that you have to drink those all day is very intimidating. So now the good news is that when you're eating more of a whole food diet, so you're getting proper amounts of vegetables and fruits into your diet, 70 to 80% of fruits and vegetables are water. And that water in the fruits and vegetables counts towards your daily intake. So really, if you're not eating any fruits and vegetables, then yes, you sit down with that 8 glasses of water and get it into your body because it's very important. But if you are eating a well-rounded diet, you get a good ample amount of fruits and vegetables, then that's counting towards your intake for the day. Also things like herbal teas or natural juices, again, that helps to work towards that daily water intake. So say if you're doing all of those good things, 4 glasses of water or 2 big glasses is going to be ample. amount. So I say take the stress out of 8 glasses of water and just take a look at what you're eating and other liquids that you're putting into your body. Keep in mind though, when it comes to coffee or caffeinated beverages, that for every 1 cup of coffee that you have and how much it dehydrates the body, you need to replace that with 2 glasses of water. So don't drink too much coffee, because then you really need to get extra water.
Or eat some more fruits and vegetables, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
We're just going to move to those last couple slides before we finish up for the morning here.
Okay, let me. I apologize. I went backwards to look at my diagram and I was talking, so give me 1 sec.
All right. So before we finish up, I just want to let everyone know that we are having our 2022 Fall Regional Parkinson's Conference. This is being offered both in person as well as virtual components. This year it's taking place this fall in Kitchener at the DoubleTree by Hilton. We have a fabulous lineup of speakers. We have Dr. Didick, we have Sophia Christopher, we have Dr. Rojas and Dr. Quincy Almeida all coming to speak, as well as some movement breaks and some various things that are happening. We look forward to seeing everybody in person, which is always exciting after 2 years of virtual components. But again, for those who live outside of the area, there is that virtual option, and you can register online through the events section on our webpage. And I just want to finish up by thanking everybody for coming out today. For more information, you can look through our website for all of our supports, education, advocacy, and research opportunities. And again, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I'm going to be emailing everybody who registered the link. And again, if you have any questions, we are happy to help out. All right, thank you everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you.